Welcome everyone to part 2 of this Blender sculpting tutorial series where we're creating this cave troll. So this is where we left off in part 1, so we've created the base of our cave troll. And in this part we're going to add a bunch of different little details. We're going to add little wrinkles and things to the skin, just add a lot more detail. We're also going to turn off the symmetry and make the pose a little bit different. And then we're also going to be modeling the gums and the teeth and the tongue and things like that. Real quick though, before we continue, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Sketchfab. Buy, sell, and even upload your own 3D models on Sketchfab. My favorite feature of Sketchfab is that you can preview 3D models in your browser and even view them on a phone, tablet, or in AR and VR. They also have a huge 3D model store where you can purchase models and assets. You can even apply to sell your own models on the platform. Check out Sketchfab with the link in the description. Alright, so let's get started with this part. So I am in sculpt mode on this object, and I'm just going to turn on the Dyn Topo. So I'm going to click right here, and then click on OK to turn that on. So I'm going to start by leaving this symmetry on because we're going to add some more details that are symmetrical, and then we'll turn it off and do some more detailing. So I'm going to use the clay strips brush, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to add some little creases right in here under the eye. So I'm going to press F to make my brush smaller, and then I'm going to hold down the control key and start to go in there. And I'm going to make probably 3 of them. So just like that. Just make those a little bit deeper. And then let's also push this out. Okay, just make those a little bit deeper, and then kind of around them, we can also add a bit more clay. So I can hold down the shift key and just kind of smooth that out, and you can kind of see what we're getting. So we're getting that look right there, so it's kind of cutting in, and you might want to zoom in a little bit more and just go back over that and make it a little bit more strong. Okay, so I'm going over that again, and then just lightly smooth it out. Just lightly go along there and smooth that out. There we go, that is looking better. Alright, so now I want to add like a little bit of a texture on the lips. So I'm going to go to the crease brush, and we're going to zoom way in here, and I'll press F to make my brush smaller. So now that it's really small, I can just go back and forth here, and I can start to add in these little creases here, and that's just going to add a lot more detail to the lips. So we're just going to go along here, we're going to go along the entire lips. Kind of zoom out here and see how that's looking. That's looking good, so I'm just going to do that for the entire thing. So I'm going to go along here and add little creases, and also I think right in here I need to hold down the shift key and lightly smooth that out in there. And I think I'm going to turn the strength up on the brush because it's a little bit subtle. I kind of have to go over it a few times. So I'm going to turn the strength up. Yeah, that is better. Maybe just turn the strength up a little bit more. You can also press F, and that's the shortcut key for changing the strength of the brush. And then also, if you want to zoom into a certain part, you can press the period key, and the period key is going to zoom you into whatever you just sculpted. So that's really helpful as well. All right, so there we go. That's added a lot more detail, so that is really good. Using the crease brush, let's also just crease a few of these things just to kind of sharpen them up. You can also hold down the control key, and let's see, my brush is a little bit too strong now, so I'm going to change it to like a 0.3, change the strength down a bit, and then you can kind of just pop out some of these things. And then also hold down the shift key and just smooth it out a little bit. And then still using the crease brush, I want to make a bunch of little creases right here, kind of from his nose down to his mouth. So I'm going to just start to go along here and add in some creases. Now this may be happening for you, but you can see that as I'm adding these details, the geometry is so high, the mesh is so dense that it's actually getting a little bit laggy. So I'm going to show you a way to lower the geometry and then continue to sculpt so that it won't be quite as laggy when you're sculpting. So I'm going to go back to the layout here. And when we're back in the layout, we're in object mode. What I'm going to do is right over here on the modifiers, I'm going to click on add modifier, and I'm going to add the Decimate Modifier. So the Decimate Modifier is going to get rid of more of the vertices. It's going to make the topology less dense, but it's going to keep the shape of the object. So if I just change the ratio here to like a 0.4 and then hit enter, it's going to take a little bit just to load up. So it's kind of calculating whatever it's doing. And you can see now it's gotten rid of a lot more geometry. Parts like this are a lot lower quality, but if we shade the object smooth, when we're rendering, you're not really going to notice any difference. So now I can click right here on the arrow and then click on apply. So we'll just wait for that to apply. And now that it's applied, if you tab into edit mode, you can see that's a lot less dense, but it looks pretty much exactly the same. So if you go back into sculpt mode now, you can go right over here and turn on the Dyn Topo, and then you can go back to the crease brush. So now if I start to sculpt, you can see that it's a lot smoother now. It is a little bit laggy, but it's pretty good. It's definitely a lot better because there's so much less topology. So it's able to calculate that a lot easier and quicker now. All right, so I'm going to make some bigger ones here, and then we'll go like this, just add a few more, just adding some more detail here. And then what I'm going to do is go to the draw brush, and I'll turn the strength down quite a bit. I'm just going to lightly go along here and just kind of pop that out. So just pop it out wherever it's in between the cracks. So just popping that out, popping this out a little bit. All right, and then we could go back to the crease brush and maybe brush it a little bit bigger. And you could just kind of go back in there and crease a bit more and then smooth out some areas if you need to. Just lightly smooth some stuff out. You could also hold down the control key, of course, if you want to pop out some of the geometry instead. All right, so something like that, that is what I'm going for. Now also let's add some little creases and things kind of around the eyes. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. Let's start by just adding like a crease in here. Just add like a little bit of detail, crease in there. And then also you could hold down the control key and just kind of pop out some spots if you need to. Also, we could crease in a few of these areas. Maybe make my brush a little bit bigger. So you can kind of crease in some of these areas to really just pop out that shape. So I'm going to crease that in and then hold down the control key and just lightly pop out that form there. Also right in here, you kind of crease that in. So we're really just making the mesh a lot more sharp and just really clearly defining those shapes. Let's maybe crease in a few things here as well. Kind of crease that in. And then also I want to add some wrinkles on like the forehead and the top of the head. So right up here, I'm going to start to add some bigger creases. Add in a couple there, so there, and then add another one. Maybe add just like 3 or 4. Maybe zoom in there. Okay. And then you could smooth out anything if you need to. And then also right down here, kind of on the bottom of the mouth, I think I'll add just a little bit of a crease there. But then kind of keep it subtle, and maybe like right here, add a little subtle crease, maybe even crease that in a little bit. And you could also crease in the chin a little bit. All right, and then let's use the draw brush. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna just go along here and just pop out some of these forms a little bit. Kind of, I'm just making like another bit of detail, just kind of going along there, adding some little kind of bumps. You can see kind of what I'm doing. And then maybe also just like hold down the control key and kind of go along here and add some little bumps there. So you can see now that we're adding in those little bits of details, it's just making the model look a lot more interesting. All right, so that is going to be it for the symmetrize detail. So I'm going to turn off the symmetry just by clicking that X button. I'm going to press Control S to save, and now we can start to add in some more details on each side to just make it look different. So I'm gonna go to the crease brush, and I'll make my brush a bit smaller, and then I'm just gonna start to go in here and add little creases here and there. So I'm gonna go right in here, add a crease in there, and just add like some little cuts and things in his skin. Let's also add maybe one here, kind of cutting that back in. Maybe he was in a battle or something and he has some scratches. Also, we can add some around the eye. So I'm gonna zoom into the eye, and I'm just gonna make some little scratches and cuts kind of in the eye going up like that. And then we can just add some more. So let's maybe add something here. Let's go in here, maybe just make it a little bit deeper here. And then also right over here on the cheek, we could add some things. So maybe just add like a scratch or something. And maybe right over here on this ear, we could add some little cuts and things. So I'm gonna cut into the ear there. And also right over here, maybe on the side of the head. Just add a few things. Let's go to the draw brush, and I'm just going to zoom into a few different areas, and I'm just going to add some little circles. Just some little circles, zoom in, just make some little circles. Now this might actually work better with the clay strips brush. Let me see if that's better. Yeah, I think the clay strips might be a little bit better, but you can do whatever you want. So I'm just going to make some little circles here. Just some little things on the skin. All right, that is good. Let's do some more, maybe down here. Just go around and then kind of smooth it out a little bit. We'll add another one there. And maybe another one like down here. Let me go back to the draw brush and see if that works better. I'm not quite sure which one I like better for adding these things. Let's add maybe one here. And then also maybe a few on the side of the head. Just go around in circles. You can also hold down the control key and kind of push back in around the side there. Just kind of flatten that out, holding down the shift key and just smoothing it out. Maybe we'll make another small one right there. And then maybe one up here. And then we can go back to the crease brush and just add some more creases and things. Maybe right here on the side of the mouth, add a crease. All right, so you can see adding all this detail is really starting to make the cave troll look more interesting. I do want to add some more scratches though, and little creases and things. So let's keep on adding more. I want to add maybe a few down here, and maybe right over here we can add a few as well. And then I think I'll also add some scratches back here. Maybe add another scratch here on his cheek. And then also right down here, I could add some scratches right like that. Okay, add another one there. I also think that this is a little bit too empty, so I think I'm going to go to the clay strips brush, and I can just add like a little bit more skin there. Just add a little bit more skin underneath that. Okay, you could also do that for the other side if you wanted to. Okay, back to the crease brush. Right in here, I want to add some little things, very subtle. But I'll just make my brush really small, and I'm just going to go in here and kind of cut away at some things. Just add a little bit of a texture there. Also right up here on the top of his head, I think I'll add a few little creases and things. All right, let's take a look at this. You can see adding in all those little details really makes the sculpt look a lot more interesting. All right, so I'm going to call this done for the extra details. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go to the grab brush, and I'm going to make my brush really big, and we're going to change the pose a little bit to make it more interesting and also kind of break the symmetry, and that'll just really add a lot to the model. So I'm going to press Ctrl S to save, and what I'm going to start by doing is, again, make your brush really, really big, and then I'm going to make one of the shoulders kind of coming up and the other shoulder going down a bit. So I'm just going to kind of tap and just kind of pop the shoulder out. So this is kind of a quick way to do like a little bit of a pose without like rigging the character. We're just in sculpt mode, and we're just going to kind of change the pose of the character. So I'm just going to push this out, kind of tap, and you can see we're kind of popping that out. And then back in here, I'm just going to push this back a little bit. So pushing that back in. And then also this shoulder I want to make down a little bit, and then this shoulder I want to have it come up a little bit. And then we're just going to do that for pretty much the entire model. So for instance, his mouth, you could change that a bit, maybe pop this up and push this down to make him look like he's snarling a little bit and really just make him look very angry. Also right in here, you could kind of push this eyelid up, and then this eyelid you could push down a little bit. And that way his eyes just look a little bit different. So one of them is just going to be a little bit more opened, whereas the other one is going to be a little bit more closed. And then also right here, over here on the nose, maybe make your brush a little bit smaller. You can kind of change the shape of the nose just to make it look a little bit different, maybe slightly deformed. And then also we can do that for the chest. So let's kind of push this down a little bit, bring this one up a little bit. And also the ear, we can play around with that. So maybe this ear, you could bring it out a little bit and also bring it down a little bit. And then this ear over here, we can kind of pop this up, bring it up and kind of over, make it a little bit more pointy. You could also just bring down the jaw slightly on one side and push it up on another side. Really, we're just trying to add a tiny little bit of difference with the pose so that he looks more unique and each side doesn't look exactly the same. So really just something like that, that's pretty good. So he really has much more of a pose now. You could even try like rotating his head or something. If you don't want to rotate his head but make it look like his head's rotating, you could also bring one shoulder back and bring the other shoulder forward, and that'll kind of give the effect that the head is rotating. Also in object mode, you could just rotate the model a little bit. All right, and that is going to be it for the posing. So I'm just going to go back to the layout here, and then we can also, just using the object context menu, we can just shade this object smooth. Alright, so I've put my drawing tablet aside and I've hopped over to my main monitor, and now I'm just going to use my keyboard and mouse to do the 3D modeling for all the stuff inside the mouth. So I'm going to press Shift C to center the 3D cursor. We can also press Control S to save our project. So now I want to make the gums and then also the teeth and the tongue. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to start by adding a cube, and this is going to be the gums inside the mouth. So I'm going to move this over, so press G to grab, and then S to scale, and G and Z, we're just going to bring this down. So I can now tab into edit mode, and I'll press G to grab and kind of move it out a little bit, and then we're going to click on add modifier, and we want to add the mirror modifier. So here it is, the mirror modifier, just to mirror it over to the other side. And then also this face right here, we need to delete it. So I'm going to click 3 or click right up here on the face select. I'm just going to select this face and I'll press X and delete faces. So I can now double tap the A key, and also I want to turn on the clipping right here on the mirror. So when I press G to grab and move them together, now the clipping is going to make sure that they stay together. So I can just scale this down and just kind of move it in. Let's move it down and inside the mouth a bit. And then also we can press Control 2, and that is going to add the subdivision surface modifier. So you can see now that cube is a lot more smooth. And then also let's shade the object smooth. So now I'm going to select this face, and we can press R to rotate, Z on the Z axis, just kind of move it over. And then we can press E to extrude, R to rotate, rotate on the Z axis, and then E to extrude. So we're basically just modeling those gums, and the teeth are going to sit on the gums. So we're just doing some basic box modeling. It's not too hard. Let's go in here, select this face. Sometimes it is a little bit hard to see inside the mouth because there's this in the way, the top part. So I'm just going to extrude that back in, bring it up. I'm also going to press O, and that is going to turn on the proportional editing feature. And then you can press G to grab and just kind of move that around. Now, because our cave troll isn't symmetrized anymore, it's not perfectly the same on both sides. You can see that it looks okay on this side, but then on this side it needs to like come up a little bit more. So eventually I'm just going to apply the modifiers, and then we can play around with this side as well. Now I'm also going to press Control R and add a loop cut. So I'm going to click and then drag over and then click to place that. And then let's also press Control R and then click and add a loop cut right there, and Control R and click and add a loop cut right there, just to kind of sharpen that up a little bit better. And then you can just kind of rotate everything, kind of put it in place. You might need to go into the wireframe view, and I'm going to turn off the proportional editing. You can just kind of rotate this, and I'm also going to move it in just a little. All right, so now that we've kind of set up the main placement, I am going to hover my mouse over the mirror modifier. I'm actually going to select the mirror modifier and then hover my mouse over it and press Control A, and that is going to apply the mirror modifier. So you can see we still have the subsurf, but the mirror modifier is applied. So I can now just go into wireframe, and I'm just going to box select this side, and then I can just press G to grab and R to rotate and just kind of move it around and place it inside the mouth. So just place it a little bit better. And if you need to move the other side too, of course you can do that. And I think everything maybe should be moved down just slightly. All right, so I want to do that for the top as well. So I can just select this, and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and then Z and just move it up. And then I want to like mirror it and kind of bring it up. So I'm going to press S to scale, Z to scale it on the Z axis, and then I can type in -1 enter, and it's just going to flip it and kind of make it upside down. So I can now rotate it, kind of bring that up, bring it in, and just kind of stick it in the top of the mouth. You also might need to scale it down a little bit. Just stick it in the top of the mouth there, and then just go into edit mode and go into wireframe. You can just press B for the box select and box select some of these things, and just press G to grab and R to rotate, and we're just going to kind of change the shape of it to fit the top of his mouth. So just box selecting some of these things and rotating them. You can also double tap the R key, and that's going to turn on the trackball rotation, and then you can kind of rotate that back a little bit if you need to. And then this is a little bit too big right up here on the front, so I'm going to push that back in as well, and maybe bring that down. I'm also going to press O to turn on the proportional editing again. We can kind of bring that down. Maybe just move it up slightly because these aren't the teeth, they are just the gums. There we go, that's looking pretty good. All right, so now I can model the teeth. So I want to have some really pointy teeth and then just some other regular teeth. So I'll press Shift C again to center the 3D cursor, and then I'll press Shift A, and we're going to start by making those really pointy teeth. So I'm going to add a cylinder. Now, right when you add the cylinder, there's the Add Cylinder settings right behind me. So if you click on that, it's going to open this up. The vertices right here, I'm going to change this to 12 and then hit Enter, and that way there's not quite as much vertices. So I'll tab into edit mode now, and I'm going to press S to scale and G to grab, and we can also press O to turn off the proportional editing. So S to scale. So we're just going to move this and stick it inside the mouth. So just scale this, rotate it and grab it, and just stick it into place. All right, and I think I might rotate this out a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to press 3 for the face select, or just click right there on the face select. I'm just going to select this top face. So I can now press E to extrude, and then S to scale, and then R to rotate, and then E to extrude, S to scale, and then R to rotate. And I'm just going to model that just like that. Now I also want to kind of select the whole thing and maybe rotate it a little bit. And then I'm also going to press Control R to add a loop cut, and I'll click to add that loop cut and just rotate it over a little bit. All right, so we've added that big tooth there. Let's also press S and Z and kind of scale it up on the Z axis just to make it a little bit bigger, kind of move it over. So then we can also shade this smooth with the object context menu, and then it is a little bit low detail. So I'm going to press Control 2, and that's going to add the subdivision surface modifier. All right, so now let's press Shift D to duplicate this. We're going to move it over and make another one, and then you can just double tap R and kind of rotate that around. Just stick it into place, kind of bring it out a little bit, and then maybe move it over so we have 2 of those teeth. All right, so that is looking pretty cool. Let's double tap the A key to select both of them, and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate and just bring them up. And then I can press S to scale, Z on the Z axis, and type in -1 enter, and it's going to flip these. Now, when it flipped them, you can see that the normals need to be recalculated. So I'm going to press Shift N, and that's going to recalculate the normals so it's flipped back. So now you can see that it's pointing down instead of up, and that is exactly what I want. So I'm just going to scale these teeth down. These top teeth, I want to bring them in a little bit and make them just a little bit smaller. So just something like that. Now, also, if you want to just select one of these teeth, you can hover your mouse over the tooth and then press L, and that is going to select all the linked vertices. And then just press G to grab and R to rotate, and just stick it into place there, just a little bit more inside the mouth. And that way these teeth won't bang into each other when he closes his mouth. So now I just want to make a few regular teeth, and I just want to stick those all along the gums. So I'll press Shift C again to center the 3D cursor. I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to scale the cube down and just kind of bring it over and down. Let's tab into edit mode on the cube, and I'm going to press Control R, and then I'll scroll my mouse wheel out to make 2 cuts, and then I'll just left click and then right click. And then also I'm going to press S to scale, and X on the X axis, we're just going to scale that way in just like that. So I want to do the same thing on this side, so I'll press Control R, scroll my mouse wheel out, and then left click and then right click, and then we can press S to scale, Y on the Y axis, and just bring that in. So now what I want to do is press 3 to go to the face select, and I'm just going to select these 4 faces. So just hold down the Shift key and select these faces, and then I'll press E to extrude and S to scale. So that is the look that I'm going for. Now I can press Control 2, and that's going to smooth it all out, and you can see now it's really starting to look a lot more like a tooth. And then I can also shade the object smooth. But these are a little bit too high up, so I'm going to go into edit mode again and press G to grab, Z on the Z axis, and just kind of push it down a little bit. And then also I'm going to press Control R, and that's going to add a loop cut, and I'm going to click, bring this up, and then click to place that. All right, there we go. So we have some basic teeth. Now I do want to make the teeth just randomly a little bit higher or a little bit lower. So I'm going to press 1, and that's going to go to the vertex select. And then you can also press O, or just click right here to turn on the proportional editing. So I can now select some vertices and press G to grab, and then you can scroll with your mouse wheel, and that's going to change the size of the proportional editing. And kind of the edges, I want to bring that up a little bit, and the inside just kind of bring that down, and just kind of make it a little bit more of a random shape. So pushing some in and pushing some out, so you can see now it just looks a little bit more organic. All right, so that is good. So I'm just going to bring this in and just kind of scale it down. And then also you can see that right here on the bottom, it's kind of going in a little bit, and I don't really want that. So actually I'm going to bring this up and then tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press 3 or click on the face select again, and I'm going to press B for the box select and just box select the bottom faces. Then I can press X to delete and just delete the faces, and you can see now that tooth is very straight. So I'm just going to scale this down and move it in object mode, and then we can just duplicate all the teeth and move them around. So right here, I probably want to have 4 teeth. So I'm going to just actually bring this way over here. All right. And then I can press Shift D to duplicate. And then I want to give it a random rotation just so that it looks more different. So I'm going to press R to rotate, Z on the Z axis, and I can type in 9, 0, and enter. And let's just kind of bring that down and in. All right, let's press Shift D on both of these. We can just rotate them around, just give them kind of a random rotation. And then it looks like we might need to scale all the teeth down just a little bit. So now that I've kind of fit all these, just hand place them, I can now select them, and I just need to scale them down a little bit so that there's enough room to fit them in there. All right, there we go. That was looking good. So basically I'm just going to duplicate these teeth and make some up here, and then do the same thing for the top. So it's pretty simple. We're just going to press Shift D to duplicate, and then really just hand place it. Just put it however you want. If you want to model more teeth or add more details, or if you want to sculpt each tooth, you could do that. You could go into sculpt mode and sculpt the teeth. I'm just going to keep it a little bit simple. I'm going to duplicate that, give it a random rotation. All right, duplicate that again. We're going to rotate this. All right, and then just press Shift D, and we're going to add maybe just one more. All right, you're not going to see, tons of detail inside the mouth. We're just going to be rendering the final image from like out here. So you're not going to see a ton of detail in the mouth, but it is still good to kind of just place the teeth. All right, so that is good. Now what we can do is we can just shift select all these, and we can press Shift D to duplicate and bring them over. And then you can press S to scale, X to scale on the X axis, and I'm going to type in -1 and enter. So you can see now it's flipped them. And so now we can just kind of put that into place, and already it's pretty close. We just need to kind of move it down. And then of course, each tooth we're going to need to manually place because they are a little bit off. So just kind of manually place each tooth. All right, so I've just been playing around with the placement of those teeth, and if you zoom out here, I think that looks pretty good. Maybe these are a little bit too close up, so I'm going to bring them back a little bit. So I want to do the same thing, but right up here. So I'm just going to shift select all the teeth. So hold down the Shift key and just select all of the teeth. And then I'm going to press Shift D and Z and bring it up. And then again, I can press S to scale, Z on the Z axis, and I'll type in -1 and enter, and that way just kind of flips them. Of course, they're going to have to be manually moved around. Now these teeth, they're a lot closer, so I'm actually just going to select these 2 teeth on the side here and press X to delete. And then these 2 teeth, I can make them a little bit bigger and kind of stick them in the very middle. All right, so just like that. And then these ones, I don't know why it kind of stacked them like that, but let's just kind of rotate these and stick them into place. So this isn't very hard. It's pretty easy just to kind of place them, but it is a little bit time consuming. Rotate this one around, kind of bring that in, and this one right here. And I think I'll just do 4 on the top as well. So back here, just do 4 of them. All right, that was looking good. So now let's just do that for the other side here. So I don't know why it kind of stacked these like this. We can just delete that and just select these. And then press Shift D, bring it over, and then again, just make sure they're all selected. We're going to press S to scale, X on the X axis, and type in -1 and enter. That just kind of gets the placement pretty close. And then we can just kind of manually stick them in place and just kind of rotate them. All right, so we're almost done here. We just need to fit these 4 last teeth in here. All right, and there we go. So I just placed the last few teeth, and that is looking really good. So let's press Control S to save our project again, and then we are going to be modeling the tongue. So I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to start by just adding a cube. Let's tab into edit mode on this cube, and I'm going to press S to scale, Z on the Z axis, and just scale the cube down. And then I can press S and X and just kind of push the cube in a little bit. All right, that is good. Let's press G to grab, and then S to scale, G to grab. We're just going to push this tongue in here. All right, just kind of bring the tongue in. Let's tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press Control R and just add 2 loop cuts. So just scroll with your mouse wheel, and then left click, and then right click. So I can now press G to grab and Y on the Y axis, and we're just going to bring that out. All right, and then we can also press O in edit mode. We can press O to turn off the proportional editing. So that is the basic shape. Let's press Control 2, and that's going to add the subdivision surface modifier, and then we can just shade the object smooth. And then also I'm going to press Control R, just left click and right click to just place a loop cut right there. So that is looking good. Let's also maybe scale this down a little bit, kind of bring it down. and just bring it in. All right, so I want this tongue to be kind of curling up. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. Let's go into wireframe, and I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select. I'm just going to box select the back of the tongue here, and I can press R to rotate, G to grab, and we're just going to bring it up. Just kind of rotate it around and bring it up a little bit more. So now I'm going to press Control R and click to add a loop cut, and then just left click and then right click. So I can now press G and Z and just kind of push this down, bring that down just like that. And then also you can press Control R and do that again. So left click and then right click, and then press G and Z and just kind of push this down. So there we go. Now you can see the tongue is nicely rotating over, and that is what I want. And if you wanted to, you could also select the main object and press H to hide it, just so that you can see that a little bit better. You could just fix some of these things, so maybe just bring that up a little bit, and add some more loop cuts in there, whatever you want to do. I'll just press Alt H now to unhide that. All right, so that is looking really good. Now tongues usually have a little bit of a crease in the very center, so I'm going to select the tongue and then click right here on the subsurf and click on apply to apply the subsurf. So now what I want to do is I want to go over to the sculpting tab, and I'm just going to sculpt a little bit of the tongue just to add a little crease in there. So I'm going to go to the crease brush, and I'll press F to make my brush a little bit bigger. And then also I'm going to turn on the Dyn Topo, and the size here I'll have it at 3. So I can now just click and drag. You can of course use a tablet. I'm just going to use my mouse really quick for this, but you can see how bad using a mouse really is. It's not that good. And then also hold down the shift key and you can just click to smooth that out a little bit. All right, so just something like that. It doesn't have to be very deep, but I just want a little bit of a crease there. So let's go back to the layout, and then we can also shade the tongue smooth. So there we go. That is going to be it for part 2 of this tutorial series. So I hope you've been enjoying the series so far, and thank you for watching. So in part 3, we're going to be doing some lighting. We're also going to be adding in HDRI to get very realistic lighting. And then we're also going to be creating a skin material and putting that on the orc. And then we'll also do like the materials for the eyes and all that stuff. We'll do lighting and rendering and then composite the final image. So if you want to watch part 3, I'll have the link right up there on the end screen. And also there will be a link in the description to part 3. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the last part.